Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, January 25th. Skipped yesterday. Played D&D with my buddies. It was the third day of D&D in a row. Need a little time away. It's like a 4-day break before playing anymore. It's fun though. And, well, now we're to Tuesday. Tuesday's movie day. Yeah, I'm gonna find something on this shelf. Whatever do I watch? And I think I've decided I'm gonna watch The Golden Compass. This movie is the first of, is it His Dark Materials? Something like that. Like a book series or something. I don't really know. Anyways, this movie was intended to have movies that follow it that never came to pass. In fact, at this point, I don't believe they ever will, because not only has it been quite a while, and the child actress is obviously a fair bit older, but there is now a series that has restarted the tale, and been telling it in like a series format, which I'm not the biggest fan of, though Lin-Manuel Miranda is in that one, so at some point I'll probably get it and check it out. I remember thinking this was cool. I remember not understanding. There was a whole lot of backlash about how terrible it is, because it's anti-Christian, and I'm like, okay, so they have daemons, which is very similar to demons in the way the word sounds. Not at all in how the creatures are described or lived out. They're more like, almost more specific familiars from D&D. But I was like, what? Well, anyways, apparently some of the later stories get more into the, whatever, anti-Christian agenda. I don't know. I've never seen any of that story. I just know that this one came out and people freaked out about it. But it was cool, and it was fantasy, and I can think that. And I can still love Jesus. So I'm gonna watch this movie. And I guess what I'm gonna try and do in watching this movie is I'm gonna try and sit down and I'm gonna try and judge it as how it does as a single movie. Because when I was a wee lad, I went to the movie theater with some friends and I saw a movie called The Fellowship of the Ring. And I walked out of that theater and I said, that movie is rubbish. They didn't even get to the volcano. They did not destroy the ring. What a terrible movie. Because I did not know the concept of series. Of like a trilogy or something where oh no, we're not trying to tell the whole story here. We got more to come. But since then, and with how much I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy and various other, the Harry Potter movies, etc., so on and so forth, I can go into a movie, and if that movie is setting up for a future movie, I don't misjudge it based on the fact that, oh, well, it didn't wrap everything up. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. But at this point, as the Golden Compass, I feel confident to say, is not getting its sequel, I'm going to try and judge it just based on what we did get. Because obviously that is the possible issue with making a movie where you're relying on having a sequel. Is what happens if that sequel never comes. And I would give The Golden Compass a 6.8 out of 10. It is still very imaginative and miraculous world, despite that ending. I'll get to that. From the back of the box. In a marvelous parallel world, where witches soar in the skies and ice bears rule the frozen north, one special girl, who is destined to hold the fate of the universe in her hands, when Lyra Belacqua becomes the keeper of the Golden Compass, only she has the ability to read its portent messages and prevent her world and all others from slipping into an evil darkness. This is a creative world. It's got the armored bears. It's got the people of the sea, the witches of the sky, the Magisterium, the evil government. It's trying to govern in an evil way. Magic artifact. Girl on an adventure. Skyships. Clockwork. And it has people whose souls are separate from their bodies, taking the form of animals. A couple bits of dialogue talk like there are actual animals, but I don't know if there are actual animals or if all the animals are souls in that world. I'm not sure. I don't quite comprehend it. It doesn't make sense if there are actual animals, given what animals are in that world, but I mean, I don't know. There's a couple lines of dialogue that make it sound like there are. But then again, what is an actual animal? I would not say that an ice bear is an actual animal in that world. It's clearly its own species, its own sentient race. So, but it's interesting. It leaves, like I was mentioning D&D before, and familiars, it leaves that sort of dialogue of you have someone with you to converse with not necessarily agreeing in opinions, and there's lots of little bits of world building. In fact, given how much the end, given that it is the end of the story, is a letdown, it helped it keep as high a score as it did, because there is little things like, okay, so people's souls, their demons, when they're kids, change shape, and then as they age, they solidify and they choose what their final shape is. It helps you understand, why do some of these adults have what seem like much more imposing, well, some of them are like insects, if their souls, their demons, they often seem to take on forms that tell you a little bit about the person. I don't feel like ever anyone in the world seems to notice it, like, that guy's demon is a beetle. This guy probably isn't the highest of character. But, like, it's clear that you can judge people by it. It is a reflection of who they are. But as kids, they're a lot of smaller animals, and they change. I don't know. It's just interesting bits of world building. Now, one thing that I will say that I was observing as an issue while going through this movie, that perhaps telling the story as a series, as they're presently doing, I got like the first season of it in my wish list on Amazon. I'll pick it up eventually, probably. Although with how this ended, I may want to wait until they finish it before picking it up, so that I know that it's all exists and I don't have to get let down again. But that said, one thing it might manage to do better would be pacing, as this has a lot of exposition, and it tells little bits of story, and it does some parts good, and then Lyra is on the run from Miss Coulter. Goblins are after her. She's rescued by the Egyptians. She's off on the ship. All the information about how the Golden Compass works. Oh, the witch randomly shows up to give more exposition, which is important. Like, as in that is a specific witch that is important that just randomly shows up there. Like, she's a significant person. So we've just met the leader of the Egyptians, the leader or significant individual of the witches, and all just happenstance. And oh boy, now we're where we need to be. Go back about the story about rescuing the armored bear and getting yourself a aeronaut, whatever, a skyship captain. And it just felt so rushed. Like, okay, we've gotten our intro. Now let's lay out the information we need in order to finish the story. Hurry up, let's get through this and back to the story. And it felt convenient and rushed. And I mean, some of the information that we were getting was cool, but the way it was presented was not ideal. Now, one of the things, as I was going through this movie, that was going through my head was knowing the ending would kind of be disappointing and thinking, what could be done? I'm an editor. I edit videos. I do have some sense of that in my mind. I was like, what can be done to fix this? And as I was kind of watching through the movie, I'm like, okay, so Uncle Astros is an important character. You can't cut him out altogether. He gives a lot of that detail in the beginning. Knowing who he turns out to be at the end is an emotional beat that is good for the movie. But there's little scenes of him getting captured and being in captivity that those can be cut out in order to not make it feel like he's gone off on his adventure and he just left the story. He's not relevant. As long as we can wrap things up at the end here nicely, can we put a bow on it? And so we get to their, evil fortress at the end. And this leads to that, and all the kids are able to get free. The kids that have been kidnapped and are having their souls surgically separated from them in order to keep them contained and controlled by the evil government. Thus, I call it the evil government, because it does evil things. Removing one's soul, evil. Especially by force. So, all the kids are running out of this evil facility, and they're confronted by the people with the wolf demons. Which makes me wonder, like, how much control does one have of what one's demon becomes? Because this seems to be a culture where, in order to be part of a culture, that's what your demon better eventually settle into. So is it people whose demons settle into that all just be like, oh, well, I guess I better join that group? Or is it like these people's children have such a desire to be able to stay part of the community that that's what their demons become? I don't know. But it's interesting. It's interesting. It's an interesting thought. But they're all confronted, and battle ensues, and the armored bear gets in, and then we got the Egyptians fighting, and then the witches show up, because we saw the army of witches headed somewhere. Oh, what battle are they going off to? This one that hadn't started yet. So they arrive out of nowhere, and big fight. And there's not a shot after that battle that could be used to tie up the movie in any way other than leading on to more story is left to go. We have not finished the story. It is so... There isn't even just like a good moment of we've succeeded that doesn't also include but I'm going. I have to go. There's more to do. There's not a moment. They could not even cut out of the movie to give it a satisfactory ending by ending, say, 2 scenes earlier. There's not a point to do it. And that definitely, because that means that it's the way, with the footage we have and the way the movie was presented, we could not even cut out of it and make it feel like, oh, that's a finished story. The last few minutes of the movie do nothing but remind you of all the different things that are yet to be told. And oh, look at all the story that's yet to come that we will not get. 'Cause this movie came out in 2007. 15 years ago. Little girl gonna be 15 years older. And I feel like that would be a very long airship ride wherever she gets off to. And it makes me sad. It made me sad for a while. I've definitely been sad about it before. I don't know, again, I've heard some things, and maybe I wouldn't care for the story that continues from this. Maybe it would offend me. Or maybe I would look at it as fun and fantasy, and I would enjoy it. Because I can separate fantasy from reality. And I like the fantasy. I like to know and learn and look at, explore. That's why I love D&D. So much of my hobbies. I build my own worlds. It's fun. Again, I have many movies to watch. That top shelf that never got pushed back, those are TV shows. And at the very end, there are like some like documentaries or things like that. And at some point, I want to get to those too. I want to watch those. Watch series. Some of those are series I've seen once. Some are series I've seen several times. And a fair number of them are series that I've actually not finished. But perhaps his Dark Materials series is one that I will get, and that will be up there at one point, and one day I will get to watching it as well. I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda is a big sales point. He's cool. I liked Hamilton. Moving from that, I loved him in Mary Poppins Returns. In the Heights was great. I like a lot of the work that he's involved in. So, although I gotta point out, like the cast in this is stellar. Where is this here? Nicole Kidman, Ian McKellen, Kathy Bates, Daniel Craig, Sam Elliott, a few others. Oh, the weirdest thing, the leader of the Gypsians, I recognize his voice as I'm watching this, and kind of his nose. And I'm like, I know that. Who is that? Who is it? And I figured it out. It's one of the very early movies I watched for movie day. There's no picture of him. He's the ogre in Ella Enchanted who joins them. Fantastic. But, anyways, great world, fun story, really horrible way to end a movie. Unless you're sure that you're going to get more movie after it, don't do that. Now, Lord of the Rings knew how to be sure. They'd already filmed them. Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, well, 2 could end on a big cliffhanger because they already filmed 3. You know, there's ways to do it. They took the risk and a bet that they were going to be successful enough to continue, and they weren't. And it sucks. Oh well. Oh. That's it. And that's it for my day. I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for joining me. Join me as my journey continues.